Fans of the Horus Heresy, thank you very much for joining me for a model and rules review of the Sicaran Battle Tank for the Space Marine Legion. One of the few truly original Space Marine vehicles to be introduced throughout the course of the Horus Heresy game development is a Sicaran. And the Sicaran Battle Tank sits somewhere between a Predator and a Land Raider, and it is a true medium tank for the Space Marine arsenal. And in this video we're going to have a look around this vehicle. So what I'm going to do, there's going to be two halves to this. In the first half of the video I'm going to talk about the model, the kit and the build, and in the second half of the video I'm going to talk about the tactics in Space Marine Legion forces in the Horus Heresy. Let's have a look at this. This came out, if I remember rightly, around the time of Book 2 Massacre, and it was quite an early addition to the Horus Heresy line. And it's a really striking looking tank. It's very futuristic as well. Quite often in Warhammer 40,000 and the Horus Heresy, vehicles can look quite anachronistic. Despite the fact the game is set in the far, far future. However, this is a tank that bucks that general trend and has a genuinely futuristic look to it, and that is that is something certainly that I appreciate in terms of a design that's gone into this vehicle. So let's look at it a bit closer up. So we've got these two large track units. We have a front armoured crew capsule. This is a driver's position, and this is reminiscent of the design cues from the original Warhammer 40,000 Rhino kit. So it's a nice use of original style iconography. We've got a hull-mounted heavy bolt gun, which traverses. You can see there that I've bored that out to bring out the detailing more. And then we've got these sort of large, heavy armoured sections that sort of wrap around the tracks, if you will. The tracks are all moulded onto this kit. There's no separate track pieces to put on, which is good. It is armed with a pair of sponsons. In the kit you get a choice of las cannons and heavy bolters. I've chosen the las And then on the turret, and certainly I think the thing that people's eyes get drawn to immediately is this very impressive weapon system, this dual autocannon, and this is called the accelerator autocannon. And perhaps more than anything about this tank, this looks futuristic. And we've got these pair of heavy autocannons, and then there is a targeting array here. And then if we look to the rear of the turret, we've got these ammo bins which are going to feed through, and then the shell ejector ports once the ammunition has been fired. So yeah, a very futuristic tank, and also we've got like this is a nice touch. These are like equipment storage bins on the back of a turret, and real tanks need storage space, and it's a nice little detail from the designer to put that on. The tank's got a cupola which opens. I've not stuck this down yet. There we go. So you can put a marine crewman in there. You could put a cupola weapon on it. Remember, although this doesn't come with a specific cupola weapon, it can take a cupola weapon as per the armour lists. And then you have a second cupola here which also opens. At the rear of the vehicle we've got this 4 exhaust stack power pack, which conveys the impression of the vehicle having a powerful engine, and that is indeed the case, as we'll come to when we discuss the rules. And detail wise, there is a good amount of underside detail to this vehicle as well. So if you were to do a diorama with it perhaps going over some terrain, you've got that detail show. Or if you use it for a blown up model, if you're feeling extravagant, you can also see that as well. Right, so yeah, that's a quick look around the tank, and as I say, it's a lovely futuristic looking tank, and it takes some design cues from things like the Predator, the Rhino, and even the Land Raider as well, and it's all been blended together into this what is now a very distinctive and purposeful looking vehicle in its own right. and it's not often that Marines get brand new vehicles, so this is something special in that regard. It's a Sicaran. Right, let's talk about the kit. So this and the build. So this comes with the, well, certainly when I bought this, it comes with the old style photocopy instructions. Just show you around this quickly. These are fine. You know, I think the construction steps are quite clear. There's no issues with these instructions. You know, despite the fact they look old-fashioned and not as professional as new CAD designs, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with these. They are a good set of instructions, and if you follow them, you won't go wrong. And in particular, it identifies to construct this hull section first, and then add the track units on. I always think this is the right approach with these vehicles, to build your hull module first, and then fit the tracks. Good set of instructions. Right, kit quality and construction. Kit quality, I didn't have any issues with this. This was fine, if I remember rightly. Watch outs. What were the watch outs? Well, I suppose, although I didn't have the issue on this kit, just make sure there's no mould slippage on these las cannons. So on other kits, I have had some significant mould slippage, which has severely disrupted the detail around these weapons. You know, and as you can see with the posability, you want them to look good. So that's one to watch out for, although, as I say, on this particular kit, you know, everything was nicely casted. Or cast, should I say. In terms of building, right, so obviously this is a full resin vehicle. You want to be careful with parts alignment, because you can see here, I've ended up with a gap here, and here, and here, and here. Now this will look okay when it's painted, but I had to carefully line everything up and space everything to make sure I didn't end up with, say, if you imagine this front unit pushed over to one side. And that again comes back to the importance of assembling the hull module first and not sticking these onto one track first and building it that way and then finding out you've got gaps. I mean, there are some gaps. I mean, these don't matter underneath. Again, as with building any resin vehicle, push fitting is essential. So get all your parts ready, get them all cleaned up, push fit them lots of times, use tack to hold them together to make sure everything lines up properly. You've got a nice alignment, and then, and only then, go in with the glue and make that permanent. Because once you've stuck a resin model like this together with any sort of super glue or cyanoacrylate adhesive, they can be very difficult to take apart. One tip for you guys is around this. Now, this is an old kit, really, by Forge World standards now, and there's a big key attachment point here and here, and I don't know if you can quite see, there's kind of like a little bit of almost like distortion that's occurred there and there. Now, this is sort of like part done, and it's actually quite a good time to show you. You can see how I've built the shape back up with the milliput, which is ready to sand now, whereas on this side I haven't. Now, as to whether or not that matters to you, well, you may not mind that. I wanted to make it look square, but one to watch out for. And when you take these keys off as well, do be careful not to take the edges off the sides of the armour plate, because it is a big chunky key attachment point there, and you're going to be cutting down to what is in effect the final detail. There is some air bubbling on this one. As I'm part way through filling this, it's quite useful to see it. Some pitting, quite a lot of pitting on the track, so part of it's filled, part of it isn't. And likewise on this side, you can see the same again. However, none of that's a showstopper. These are little air bubbles like that are easy to fill. Use a bit of milliput or your preferred filler, and that's fine. The turret comes off, and you can see it's got a hollow hull. I keep that separate for a bit of fun, and also for transport purposes as well. But you could stick that in place. And the fit of a turret is good. Now, let's talk about the turret. Now, when you're building this, a couple of things to bear in mind. Firstly is I had to straighten out my autocannon barrels, my accelerator autocannon barrels. These were both quite warped. Well, not really warped, but they were warped, so I had to straighten them out. But, that's easy enough to do either with immersing them in hot water, which is my preferred technique, or using a hairdryer, which some people prefer, you can do that. So yeah, that's one to watch out for. The other one is once you've got your auto cannon barrels ready and the turret assembly ready, dry fit them and make sure they align properly. Now, at the risk of showing this wrong because of barrel distortion on the camera, you can see how it lines up pretty well all the way through. Now, originally, when I put this together, one of these autocams was slightly misaligned, and the reason was it was actually the attachment point on the side. It's got like a peg attachment point where they clip onto the side. So I actually took it apart after I'd finished building it, and I cut some of the material away, and just to bring this autocannon slightly this way round to that way, and just get a better alignment. Spend your time dry fitting it and making sure everything lines up, and in the final, when you're finally done, it'll look good. One nice thing to do to bring out the detail is to bore out the autocannon barrels. I've not done these yet. I'm going to actually shoot a tutorial video to show you guys how to do it. But these, because you've got these muzzle brakes, these are ideal candidates to bore the barrels out to really enhance the detail. And if you see my DeRadio Dreadnought, you'll know what I'm talking about there. Final thing on construction with this is the las cannon. So you get a weapon choice and you get an optional heavy bolter to put on the sponson. So rules wise, you can either have it with a heavy bolter or you can have it with the las cannons. I went for las cannons. However, I've got a couple of other vehicles with similar sponson weapons and they're all compatible. So I magnetised mine. What were these? 3x2mm magnets. So one there and one there. And I kept all the polarities consistent across the different models. And this does two things. First, it magnetises a weapon so you can change it. But secondly, it gives you resistance on the rotational joint. And because of that, they stay in position nicely. Worth considering, particularly if you've got several tanks, and you may want to have some heavy bolter sponsons and some other sponsons. And of course, you can take the Sicarion like this. You don't, as it's in its basic form, it doesn't require sponsons. So if you were to ever want to field it like that, which is not an unreasonable approach, you could make some cover plates to put on those. Yeah, no, a very nice kit, and one that certainly looks really nice once it's built. There's no doubt about it. It's a fantastic looking tank. Looks very purposeful. Okay, so I talked about size, so let's do a couple of quick size comparisons. And I mentioned two comrade vehicles to this, the Land Raider and the Predator. Now, I don't have a Predator, but I do have a Rhino. So let's firstly compare against a Rhino, the Demos Pattern Rhino. And it's if you ignore the sponsons, it's probably actually about the width, but there's a lot more bulk to it, and certainly including the turret, a lot more height, and it's a somewhat longer vehicle as well. So yeah, definitely a size up on the Rhino. And then if we introduce its heavier stablemate, here we've got a Land Raider Phobos Mark 2B. It's getting a bit cramped for space here in shot. How does it compare to the Phobos 2B? So it's actually taller on account of its turret. However, width-wise, the Land Raider is a wider tank, and if we go and compare on the length front, the Land Raider is also a bit bulkier, a bit longer. Now, bear in mind, in this camera shot, there's a bit of distortion, but it's probably about, the Land Raider is probably about, I don't know, 5 to 8 millimeters longer. But overall, though, the Land Raider, because of its boxier design and higher profile, the Land Raider occupies a lot more space. So there's the size comparison part. I mean, and that's an advantage of this tank over a Land Raider as a Space Marine heavy tank. It is a smaller vehicle as well, which does help sometimes tactically. Okay, so let's talk about the rules on the Sicarion. So I'm referring to the 2nd edition Space Marine Crusade Army List as my source of the rules. First thing is, with the Sicarion is play fair points wise. In the second edition Crusade army list, the points value of this vehicle was increased from 135 to 165, so it was significantly undervalued in the first pass of the rules. So it's important to play that second edition. So what are the stats on this? So it's a heavy support choice for the Marine Legion. It's ballistic skill 4, front armour 13, side and rear armour is 12, and hull points are 3. So compared to the Predator, it's no tougher up front, however it's significantly more resilient on the flanks and particularly the rear armour. And that sits well with the fact that this is a fast tank. And to get the most out of Sicarion, you want to be exploiting that speed. Its basic war gear is a twin-linked accelerator autocannon, a heavy bolter, which is this one in the hull, extra armour, searchlight and a smoke launcher. Options include a hunter-killer missile and a dozer blade at 5 points each, auxiliary drive at 10 and armoured ceramite at 20. For the sponsons, you can add 20 points for heavy bolters or 40 points for las cannons. And then you also have the choice of cupola weapons of a twin-link bolter, combi weapon, heavy bolter, heavy flamer, multi-melter or havoc launcher. So you've got a really good selection of weapons there. And the couple of standouts there for me are the heavy bolter to increase your anti-infantry firepower, and then the multi-melter. And because of its speed, you're going to find that this is a good vehicle for getting that multi-melter into its 12-inch killing range. Right, so that's its weapon. So it's a medium tank. It's got good all-round armour for its class, although it's not as tough as a Land Raider. You're not going to go toe-to-toe with that tank and win all the time. And it's fast. Now, so the fact it's fast is it comes in its basic form suits very well with having the accelerator autocannon. You can keep moving at 12 and keep firing with your autocannon at full ballistic skill. One thing to note with the tank is you can't fit it with a machine spirit, so you are a little bit more limited in that regard when compared to a Land Raider or even a Vindicator. However, I've not talked about the main party piece on this, which is the accelerator autocannon. So this is a heavy, rapid fire, very accurate autocannon. Range 48, strength 7, AP 4, heavy 6, rending, rapid tracking. And rapid tracking means that targets can't take jinx saves against a target. So your main use with these guys, or your real killing power, is against jetpikes and other skimmers. So this thing is going to chew apart land speeders, javelin attack speeders, very accurate against jet bikes, although it lacks the armour penetration to be truly effective against those. If you're playing in the 40k environment, then there's a whole host of races that have a lot of skimmers. For example, the Eldar, they're really going to suffer against the accelerator autocannon. And at a pinch, you can use it for anti-air, because although you've only got snap fire, you have 6 shots, you're twin linked, and if you do score a hit, then the aircraft can't make its usual dodge of taking a jinx save to try avoid damage. So what do I think tactically on this one? Well, normally I play it with the autocannons and typically the las cannons. The las cannons provide some very useful additional anti-tank punch, even in their just single mount form and lacking twin linking. And it gives you a more consistent high strength weapon for dealing with tougher targets, where you can certainly hurt Land Raiders and other Armour 14 vehicles with the autocannons. You can't rely on them to consistently do it, whereas the las cannons are more consistent in that regards. I guess tactically this works well in smaller forces because of the fact you can only take one tank in a single slot. That means that you can't do a Land Raider squadron and have 3 Land Raiders, or you can't do a Vindicator squadron and have 3 Vindicators. So by taking this, you are limiting yourself and your overall value for your slot. So it does work well in smaller to average size games, because you're less likely to run out of capability as a result. I guess the specific uses of the Sicarion is its speed and its firepower. And you should use that maneuverability to always seize cover. Take the cover to protect yourself, as well as moving fast, and then use it to flank. And if you have a right of war or an army that allows you to make flank attacks with vehicles or give them the outflank rule, then this really comes into its own. and particularly playing as Iron Hands, I frequently play the Head of a Gorgon rule, and that allows me to play this as an outflanking unit. Believe me, this thing turning up on the side armour of even enemy super heavies, such as the Bane chassis tanks, is a nasty surprise, and it can really do an awful lot of damage in those situations. I think because of its speed and to utilise it, it's often a tank that is going to be on its own. So yeah, use that manoeuvrability to exploit the cover, because the chances are you're going to be out of range of your tech marines to try and get repaired if you do take damage. The other vehicle heavy legions will appreciate this, and I suppose there is an option in a smaller army to take 3 Sicarians, fill out your heavy support slots, and just take them base. Don't bother with the las cannons, and for what we're looking at about 500 points, you've got yourself a very deadly trio of fast-moving, accurate tanks that no enemy unit, regardless of their armour, can ever ignore, and you can always catch people out with them. So that's everything I've got to say about the Sicaran Battle Tank for the Space Marine Legion in 30k. You can also use this in the 40k with the Relic of the Army rule. I hope you found that an interesting overview. It certainly is. It's, as I say, it's a lovely looking vehicle, and it really does fill a very good niche in the Space Marine list, and it's also very archetypal Space Marine. It's hard hitting, it's sophisticated, and those are all characteristics, archetypal characteristics of Space Marine forces. So I hope you've enjoyed the overview. Let me know if you've got any thoughts on the Sicarion. I've done this review for a commenter who is about to get one of these and was looking for an overview, and that was for Hordak. So I hope you enjoy this review, Hordak. But yes, thank you very much for listening. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.